Hello and welcome back to Taki Space Program. I'm Taki117, and I've just finished upgrading both the mission control and tracking station center, and I've also completed 3 copies of my communication satellite that I'm going to be putting in orbit to complete one of my contracts. So let's go ahead and roll the first one out. And so let's see how this is done. So I plan to put these in about a 1 megameter orbit, maybe 1.5. I'm not entirely sure yet. I'll figure it out when I get there. So this launch profile is going to be a little bit steeper than my normal one, but I've done some tweaking under the hood, swapped out some of the internals of my satellite, and I must say I rather like the result. So let's make sure my staging is right. It is not. That gets moved up there. There we go. Alright, so we got launch clamp, engine, that. I'm going to go ahead and split this into 2 stages really quick. And there. Okay, so launching in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there she goes, lift off. So our ascent's going to be pretty standard. Looks like we got a bit of cloud cover, but that's not a big deal. There's the spacing. You can see my upgraded tracking station and mission control there. And here we go. Getting ready for the pitch over right about now. And again, you don't want to do much. It doesn't take a whole lot. You just want to get your prograde marker off vertical, and then just let the rocket do the rest. Now, you're probably wondering why this particular shape for a rocket. You know, a lot of rockets, they're tall, they're skinny, and there's not a whole lot of variation to them. And it all really comes down to aerodynamics. Flying a brick in a hailstorm doesn't work very well. You know, you have a lot of air resistance. You're using up a lot of fuel when you do that. Whereas with a more streamlined, pointy rocket, you're slicing through the air. You're moving easily through the atmosphere. So you're using less fuel, ultimately. There are other factors like steering losses, gravity losses, things like that. But it's far easier for a streamlined aerodynamic rocket to move through the atmosphere than it is a large flat rocket. So here we are getting ready for first stage burnout. Beautiful day for a launch. And hopefully I have enough electricity. Alright, there goes the first stage. Again, going to coast for a bit. I'm actually going to coast a little bit longer this time. And I'm going to coast up to about 40 kilometers here. And there goes the first stage. Again, my rocket wants to flip. Not a big deal. Cut my throttle. My engine so that when I come back around, I can go ahead and fire it up and get right back into orbit. Or into my ascent, rather. Oh, there's Uranus. And again, Jupiter and Callisto up there, hanging out. And come down towards the horizon. And I'm going to do something a little different. Oops. Again, flying these rockets manually. I've not unlocked autopilot yet. While I'm still in the atmosphere. Well, that didn't work. I was hoping to eject those panels while I was still in the atmosphere and they would fly away, but that obviously didn't work. It's not a big deal. It's a minor annoyance more than anything. And because I am now unbalanced, oh, there's one exposing the inside. Oh, there goes the other one. Okay. So now you can see the inside of my rocket. I have some little tiny antenna there. And a couple of solar panels. Look at that. I also removed one of my batteries. And I'm going to go up to 1.5 megameters. That's good right there. And I'm going to go ahead and ditch the second stage again because I have more than enough delta V. And I'm going to deploy my solar panels. There they are, look at that. And I'm going to switch from, let's move these so that we're catching some rays here. Now this is going to be a tad problematic because they don't track the sun. But I'm going to switch from my launch antenna over to my main antenna. See if I can get in here. Oh dear. Ah, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and deactivate that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my flight computer. Well, I now have maneuver nodes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a maneuver node out at apoapsis to circularize my orbit. It's going to take me about 400 meters a second of delta V. This is good. I have 1800 left. It's more than enough. But I'm going to use the flight computer included with remote tech to execute that maneuver node. So even if I happen to lose contact, it's still going to execute that node. I just have to make sure it's powered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these solar panels if I can. Something screwy's going on here. There we go. And I'm going to make this sun exposure as high as I possibly can. Looks like 0.96, 0.97 is about all I'm going to get out of it. But that's okay. Because if we look here, I'm generating more electric charge than I'm using. Just fine. And that's just a nice little satellite there, isn't it? So, we're going to go ahead and warp to our maneuver, and as we're looking, we can see that I'm actually in the sunlight the entire time. See, keeping about 0.97, generating about 1.7 units of electricity per second. Which is good. Now, the other two satellites that I've made are exactly the same. They look exactly like this one. The flight profile is going to be exactly the same. I am, however, going to flip around, hopefully, so that these solar panels are actually facing the sun. Because right now they're not. I'm not generating any electricity. You can already see my electric charge dropping quite rapidly, actually. Now, I do have a couple minutes before the burn, so I do have time to perform this roll maneuver, for lack of a better word. There we go. So now, and there we go. Bringing my solar panels back into the sunlight. So now all I have to do is orbit with a periapsis of greater than 600 kilometers. Easy enough. Once I circularize, that will be complete. I will have completed this first contract. But I also need an eccentricity below 0.004 and an inclination below 1 degree. That one's going to be important because right now my inclination is about 30 degrees. So, warp just a little bit to finish this maneuver and complete the one contract. And then I'll perform a plane change maneuver to bring my inclination down to where it needs to be. So here the flight computer is taking over and is performing that maneuver beautifully. Actually, I've just completed the Vanguard 1 contract, and there we go. So now I'm going to turn off the flight computer. Figure out how to do that. Ah, here we go. Turn that off. Turn my SAS, my stability system on. Point my solar panels back at the sun. That's gonna get annoying real fast. But the good news is, once I've finished with this particular satellite, I won't have to readjust it. Or I shouldn't have to readjust it. So, I'm going to go ahead and perform some science now that I'm in high orbit. Symmetry and the Geiger counter on both of these. Geiger counter, and transmit all of that and watch as it's being used, but it's also being regenerated, so it's just going to keep see, there we go. It's just going to recharge and it's going to transmit the data, and once it's all transmitted, the batteries are going to fill back up and I'm going to keep control. So there we go. There's that one. Let's see what else I can do with this. Ah yes, I need to make my plane change. So this works out well. You'll notice my apoapsis and my periapsis are fairly close to my ascending and descending nodes. This is what we want, because this makes our plane change maneuver oh so simple. See, and now I can bring this down. And I'm just going to play with this maneuver a little bit. Hopefully I get down to 0 degrees. Now it's really hard to tell exactly where 0 degrees is. Whoops. Ah, that's not what I wanted. Cancel. trying to do is focus on Earth. There we go. You do that by double clicking on the planet. Now hopefully I can get fairly close to 0 degrees here. So we're going to go ahead and execute the next node. And what I'm watching for here is my inclination. Hopefully it reaches 0 and I'm good. If it doesn't, I'll just readjust and perform another inclination change farther along. Now, this is going to take 625 meters a second in delta V. If you remember before, when I was trying to do this manually, it took a lot more than that. And that's simply because I have better tools. I can plan now. I can see, okay, by burning this direction, it's going to change my orbit this way. By burning this direction, it's going to change it this other way. So here's our countdown timer. Now this estimated burn time is based on full throttle of the last engine used. So it says this will take about 17 seconds. Now, because I'm using the same engine, that's perfectly alright. If for some reason I had to stage in the middle of it, that would actually be inaccurate. And that's simply because it's calculating based on the engine being used when the maneuver is planned. So it looks like I overshot just a little bit. I'm actually out of delta V. So darn. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the Kerbal Space Center. I'm going to go ahead and launch the other 2 rockets, and I'm going to see if I can't do something about this orbit. So anyway, that's all for now, and I'll be back in a few minutes. So, I finally got my first communication satellite into an acceptable orbit, and look at that picture. I think I'm going to make that my new background. So, I'm going to take a screenshot, and to do that, all you gotta do is hit F1. Boom, screenshot is saved in the screenshot folder in the KSP directory. Now, if you'll notice, I've also turned off my HUD, or my heads-up display, and how you do that is with F2. So to get a really nice screenshot like this, you first turn off your heads-up display, so you hit F2, and you hit F1, and you're done. Now you have a beautiful screenshot that you can share on the forums, or on Facebook, or wherever you want, or just set it as your desktop background. So, here we are, sitting on the pad with our second satellite. Now, this flight profile is going to be exactly like the first. Once we actually get into orbit, it's going to be a little bit different. So, here we go with this. Now, like I said, our ascent is exactly the same. It's actually the exact same rocket. Like I said, I built 3 of them so that I could have the repeatability and the reliability of a single launch platform for all 3 satellites. And the reason for that is I know the capabilities of the one. I know exactly what it's going to take to get into orbit. And I know how long I have to perform the necessary maneuvers, because I know how long the batteries are going to last. Now, yes, I do have solar panels on these satellites. However, batteries are not infinite. They do have the chance of running out of power if they're left out of the sun for too long. This happens specifically when going to the dark side of the planet. Especially with the orbit that they're on, they're definitely going to be passing through the shadow of the planet, and they may not necessarily have enough electric charge to get out. The other issue that I'm going to run into is simply the rotation of the satellite as it orbits the planet. As the satellite's going around the planet, it's facing the same direction the whole time. So, if the solar panels aren't oriented, then that's an issue. If they're not oriented correctly, oops, what's going on here? Then as the satellite orbits the planet, it's not going to be able to get the necessary sunlight that it needs. So I guess this one isn't going to be just like the first one. There we go, now we're back under control. Little minor hiccup there. Nothing too terribly crazy. And again, we're going to 1.5 megameters, or 1,500 kilometers. As we can see, ComSat 1 is over there, so that's good. And it looks like, no, we do not have a connection to it because we have ground stations that are closer. So, and that's perfectly fine. Here we go, pushing our apoapsis out while we're still fairly close to the planet. And what that does is it gives us a much more efficient burn. We're at, quickly approaching 100 kilometers. And now you can see our periapsis is above the planet's surface. 500 kilometers, here we go. Stand by for second stage shutdown. 3, 2, 1. There we go. Second stage shutdown complete. Pop those panels off, give the rocket a quick spin. Just to again clear those. And we're just going to warp a little bit to get those out of the way. And we're going to go ahead and deploy our solar panels. Make the switch from the ascent antenna to the in-flight antenna. Now, you're probably wondering why I have two different types of antenna, and the main reason for that is different scenarios. You know, I have the one in-flight antenna, which will break if exposed to high dynamic pressure, whereas the ascent antenna will not. That's the main reason. The reason I'm making the switch between the two is simply to save on my electric charge consumption. Here we go. This is actually going to be a combination of maneuvers. So, I have ComSat 1 set in an appropriate orbit. So I'm going to set it as my target, and then I'm going to adjust my inclination at the maneuver node. Oops, going the wrong way there. And this has the added benefit of also adjusting my orbit. Then add some radial. And this is why I like maneuver nodes, because I can just kind of play with them and mess with them. See what changing certain parameters is going to do to my orbit. See, and you can see as I'm orbiting the planet, my communication satellite 1, ComSat 1 here, is charging and discharging its batteries as it orbits. So there's that maneuver. It's going to use up about 1,200 meters a second, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and execute that maneuver while I still have plenty of battery. And I'm going to watch my contract here to see if I complete this inclination below 1 degree. I can also watch my inclination here, but ComSat 1 is not exactly at 0 degrees. It's just the way it happened. But it is below 1 degree. It's like 0.996, I believe. Not important. So here we go, we're getting ready to burn. Now there's probably going to be a little bit of a jerk because I realize that the satellite isn't balanced very well. Okay, not as much of a jerk as before, simply because there's a lot more mass in the second stage. So hopefully this burn is going to go off without a hitch. You can see my inclination dropping quite nicely, actually. 5 degrees, about 5, yeah. And I'm in a stable orbit. No, stop. Kill. Well, that could have gone better, but it certainly didn't go bad. I need to quickly correct my inclination, because it so there we go. Corrected my inclination. Apoapsis and periapsis are still off, but I can set a maneuver here to adjust that by burning what's called radially, or perpendicular to my current orbit, and that's going to adjust both my apoapsis and periapsis at the same time. Now obviously this takes some fiddling simply because I'm trying to match 2 orbits. don't necessarily want to match up. Now, for the moment, I'm ignoring my close approach markers because I don't need them. I'm not trying to dock with this spacecraft. I'm merely trying to match orbits with it. So I'm going to fiddle around with that. There we go. There's that. Now it's going to take 716 meters a second. I don't have that in my second stage. So I'm going to go ahead and ditch my second stage, spin my spacecraft to charge up my batteries, so those are quickly draining. There we go. And here we go. Perform a maneuver. Rather, we're going to warp to our maneuver node. Alarm's going to pop up here, 3 minutes to maneuver. Now, to manually execute a maneuver, it's always a good practice to start your burn approximately, and I miss it. There I go talking. Anyway, it's always a good idea to start your burn approximately halfway, or to have your maneuver approximately halfway between your burn. So if your burn time is 18 seconds, you want to begin to execute your maneuver 9 seconds before your node and end your maneuver 9 seconds after your node. Now again, I have tons of delta V here. It's not that big a deal to me that I've overshot. But as you can see, I'm fighting my rocket because it is horribly unbalanced. And there we go. Somehow, magically, oh no, not quite. So all I need to do is get my eccentricity below 0.004. I should be able to do that simply by pointing retrograde. So point retrograde. Perform small burn, paying more attention to my eccentricity than I am my actual orbit. Oops. Looks like I overshot just a little bit. So here we go, prograde. Fix that. 7, 6. Oh. So now I need to split the difference and start burning regularly. There we go. Once again, I need to maximize my solar collection here. And there we go. We now have our second satellite is in orbit. So we're going to go ahead and end it here. Before the next episode, I'm going to go ahead and put up the third satellite and get it all set up. That way you don't have to watch me do this a third time. And then we'll continue on. So, until next time, I'm Taki117, and remember, it's just rocket science.